The story of Hjalmar Schacht, the man who helped build the Nazi war machine, and then tried to bring it down. In the aftermath of World War I, Germany was broken. Cities crumbled, industry halted, and its economy lay in ruin. The Treaty of Versailles had demanded reparations so heavy that the German mark collapsed under its own weight. In 1923, inflation had grown so monstrous that a wheelbarrow full of banknotes could barely buy a loaf of bread. People used money as wallpaper or burned it to keep warm. Confidence in the government had vanished. Starvation loomed. Amid this chaos emerged a quiet, sharp man in a suit, Hjalmar Schacht. He wasn't a soldier, or a general, or a fiery orator. He was an economist. A banker. But in a nation desperate for miracles, Schacht offered exactly that, a way out of hyperinflation. With calm precision, he engineered the Rentenmark, a new currency not backed by gold, but by the value of Germany's land and industry. It was a bold move, and it worked. The German economy began to breathe again. For that, Schacht became something of a national hero. But a decade later, as the Great Depression rolled across the globe, Germany plunged once more into despair. Unemployment soared, the economy froze, and extremism flourished. In the 1930s, another man rose from this wreckage, promising to restore German greatness, Adolf Hitler. Schacht wasn't a Nazi. In fact, he found much of Hitler's ideology distasteful, even dangerous. But he did believe in one thing Hitler also championed, a strong and revived German state. And so, when the Nazi Party seized power in 1933, Schacht agreed to return to the heart of Germany's economy, first as president of the Reichsbank, and later as Minister of Economics. At first, his work looked like a miracle again. Germany's economy roared back to life. Factories reopened, roads were built, unemployment plummeted. But behind the scenes, something else was happening, something illegal, and something deeply dangerous. Germany, at that time, was forbidden by the Treaty of Versailles to rebuild its military. But Hitler wanted weapons, tanks, planes and war. So Schacht gave him a way to pay for it all. Without the world noticing. He invented a scheme called Mefo bills, essentially fake invoices from dummy companies that allowed the Nazi government to pay arms manufacturers with delayed IOUs. It was a financial illusion, and it worked. Suddenly, Hitler's war machine began to hum. Tanks were built under the cover of infrastructure projects. Ammunition flowed in secrecy. Germany, on paper, was still peaceful, but in practice, it was arming faster than any nation in Europe. Schacht had given Hitler the economic engine he needed. And yet, he grew increasingly uneasy. As Hitler's speeches became more violent, and the state more brutal, Schacht began to pull away. He clashed with other Nazi officials, warning that the economy was overheating, that the country was printing too much money, and that the debt created by rearmament would soon spiral out of control. But Hitler didn't care. He dismissed Schacht's warnings and removed him from his posts, replacing him with men who favored war over caution. Schacht, once central to the Nazi regime's success, became a quiet outsider. Yet, he didn't retreat into silence. Instead, Schacht began to resist. In private, he spoke with members of the military and conservative aristocracy, who were secretly plotting to overthrow Hitler. These were not revolutionaries, they were insiders, generals, and bureaucrats who feared that Hitler would destroy the country they claimed to love. Schacht supported their plans. He used his influence, his knowledge, and even his financial contacts to help them coordinate in secret. Then, in July 1944, one of the most famous assassination attempts on Hitler's life was carried out. A bomb was planted inside Hitler's briefing room. It exploded, but Hitler survived. The Nazi regime responded with swift and brutal retaliation. Thousands were arrested. Hundreds executed. And among those rounded up was Hjalmar Schacht. He was imprisoned. Interrogated. Eventually, he was sent to Dachau, a concentration camp filled with political prisoners and victims of the very government he had once helped finance. When the war finally ended, Schacht was freed by Allied forces. But his reckoning was not over. He was arrested once again, this time by the Allies, and placed on trial at Nuremberg. There, prosecutors accused him of being one of the architects of Hitler's rise, of financing the regime's illegal buildup of arms, and of enabling the Nazi war machine. But Schacht defended himself. He argued that while he had indeed worked with the Nazis, he had broken with them before the war began, had opposed their brutality, and had actively joined efforts to stop them. Witnesses confirmed his resistance ties. His time in a concentration camp lent weight to his story. In a controversial decision, the Nuremberg tribunal acquitted him. He walked free, one of the few men at Hitler's side who would never face execution or life in prison. In the years that followed, Schacht continued to work as a financial advisor. He traveled, wrote memoirs, and lived until the age of 93. But the question remained, was Hjalmar Schacht a genius who tried to save his country? Or a clever man who only regretted his choices when it was too late? He gave Hitler the tools. He built the machine. And though he tried to shut it down, he couldn't escape the fact that without him, the Third Reich might never have been powerful enough to threaten the world. It's a haunting story, one of ambition, brilliance, and consequences. And a reminder that some of history's most dangerous figures never carry weapons. They carry balance sheets. Cheering megaphone emoji. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to Real Quick History. We bring you the forgotten stories behind the headlines, deep dives into people and events that shaped our world more than we realize. New episodes every week.